Well, the nomad life, freedom, living on the road. I've been doing it for 4 years, and there's nothing like it with regards to feeling totally unanchored, totally free, totally liberated from being suffocated by a conforming life, being restricted by a normal life in a house or an apartment. But with that freedom comes downside. Now, the downside is living as a full-time nomad is you just don't have that feeling of stability that a home, a piece of property brings. A level of it is emotional. A level of it is practical. Practically speaking, I have no fixed one area to go to every day. So that's a negative as a nomad, but the negative, if I had a home base, if I had a fixed area to go back to every night, that itself is the negative, the anchor to your soul, the commitment. See, what I found in discovering myself and other people who are into the minimalistic nomadic life is that we don't like commitment. We don't like to be hindered. Maybe it's something that people that have a level of creativity or just a certain personality type, we like to be totally free. But we are at odds with that dynamic because total freedom, okay, is like buying Bitcoin in the early stages. It's unlimited potential, but it's a volatile investment. And there's a lot of risk. And I'm not a Bitcoin investor, but that's an example I can give you because the reason you feel so free when you live as a nomad with no home base is because you're taking this risk, that you're going to be able to figure out every night for however long you're going to do this, that you're going to be able to survive and be safe and thrive. And that's unknown. However, when you know that you have a home base and you know you can go back to something, that risk and that danger is gone, which is great. That brings stability, but that also brings boredom. That also brings a conforming life. And this is the ultimate thing that lingers in a nomad's mind to the day they stop doing this full time. I'm not talking about weekend travelers. I'm not talking about people that live in an RV or a vehicle that still own property. I'm talking about someone that either sold their house or got out of their lease. They live full time in their car, van, or RV. And an RV with a fully self-contained RV brings a little more stability because even though you're on wheels and you may not have a place to park, you have a home. And now you pay the price for having an RV because it's a more costly way to live on the road. It's not as flexible. You have limited parking options, but that's something that nomads debate too. Like, should you get an RV? Should you get a regular van? Should you start in your car? I just started in the car I have because for me, like I've shared, that I don't know how long I was going to do this life, and I didn't want to spend thousands of dollars on a new vehicle or RV, and I didn't want to be tied to campgrounds. And that's still a dilemma. But the dilemma with the home base is, do you want to commit? That's a downside to a nomad. Nomads do not like commitment. We're free spirit. The opposite of freedom is commitment. And it's something that it can be a pro and it can be a con. And you're always trying to figure out, how do you find the balance or how do you make it work? And what I found is different people try different things. Most people change their vehicle, their RV, every 3 to 5 years. Most people sell their property every 10 years or so. So there's a cycle of life, a season of life that everything is going to change no matter what. Even if you own property, or even if you're renting, or even if you have bought a new RV. And so it comes down to how do you want to live, but there's something to me that's a downside when I get ready to sign a document to commit to something that I don't like. And I think there's something in the human, again, that independent spirit, that there's a reason that people like unlimited data plans, people like no contract commitments, because people don't want to be burdened knowing that they're obligated. However, the downside of not being obligated is you have no stability. You have more responsibility in one sense as far as taking care of yourself. But again, the downside to having that stability is you're married. You're committed to something. And that's what I think is always going to be the number one thing that a nomad faces. I think there's two major things that you will face as a full-time nomad. It's the lack of a home base and the lack of temperature control. Again, if you have an RV, you have solved temperature control. If you have a hybrid or electrical vehicle, to a certain level, because they have the hybrid battery that provides a level of temperature control, even though the car starts periodically, that's somewhat of a solution. But you don't, whether you have a car or RV, you don't have the solution of stability with a home base. So then if you get to the point in your mind where you want to commit to a home base, you solve that problem. But the downside is now you're not a free bird. You're a bird that has to go back to a nest every night. And some of that's emotional, some of it's practical, because there's certainly burdens of ownership. There's even burdens of renting steadily, being on someone else's property under someone else's watch. I don't like that either. Even though at renting you have more flexibility than ownership, but you don't have no equity. And so there's always that give and take. But from someone who's been on the road, living out of his car, out of his Jeep for 4 years, I've seen many people come and go. I've seen people do videos of them in their apartment. I'm cutting out my Reflectix. I can't wait to get on the road. And after a couple months or even a year or so being through extreme temperature, getting a knock on the door and going through car maintenance problems and going through aggravation, it wears on them and they go back into a conforming life. And there's no shame in that. Why? Because, again, we're not on an episode of Survivor. Sometimes as a nomad, you feel like you are in a competition to see if you can survive more than the next nomad. It's just the way it is. But I don't know, I'll always struggle with that. And I always have to make periodic videos. I mean, there's times where I'm this close to buying a home base. And then when I decide not to, I feel this liberated. I can't say I've come close to buying a couple home bases. And I can't say that I necessarily regret not buying any of them. And in one sense, that's a good thing. Because obviously I don't have a regret, right? But in the other sense, that's a bad thing, because if I don't regret not buying a home base and I was like really enthusiastic about that home base, what does that mean? That eventually I'm going to buy one and I'm not going to like it? Because after time goes on without something, I don't miss it, so I don't know. It's that give and that take, that yin and that yang. And that is what the nomad faces mentally and practically, because parking is your biggest issue and your second is temperature control. So you're going to have to be a strong-minded, flexible, adaptive person to stay full-time on the road for a long period of time. And you need the grace of God, because there's some instances that things could have went a little bit wrong, or any of us can get hurt on the road. And then if you're stuck without any home base, there's going to be a scramble to find stability. And that's a risk. That risk gives you the excitement of being free, but it's also a danger, risk reward. But sometimes risk doesn't get rewarded. It's a failure. So, it's just something that I like to talk out for you guys. Hopefully these videos help you. If they do help you and you like to support the channel, click that blue join button. It'll give you unlimited access to all my live feeds that I do every day. It'll also give you custom badges, custom emojis. Thank you to all my members. Gratitude, not entitlement. You can also check out my playlist, which has thousands of free videos that I've done. And you can watch them and learn from my experiences maybe, or spark something in your own mind to push you forward closer to your dreams, okay? Remember, be consistent. Remember, take care of yourself, self-care. And remember that Yeah, self-care is at the essence of everything, because if you don't take care of yourself well, you're not going to be stable mentally, physically, emotionally, or even financially. A big part of life is very simple, and it's not about a rig, or RV, or home base. It's about you, your temple, your body. It's about your self-care, because that's your ultimate shelter. That's your ultimate transportation, is your body, your being, and being well. Remember, a body emotion stays emotion, okay? Remember, healthy relationships bring stress. Remember, stress tears down our body, tears down our mental health. And so we have to take care of ourselves very well, and that's a discipline, okay? So thank you again for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.